Dr. Roberts, you've expressed that beautifully, and I pray for grace to phrase this appropriately on my part. But I would like to probe this and hit it head on, because I think you have analyzed the situation clearly. It is as you have said. On the side of white evangelicals, specifically our constituency, what can we do on our part? What sort of changes can we make that would be constructive and helpful toward these ends? I hope that doesn't seem like a foolish question to you.
Well, it's a large question, and it has to be, it can be dealt with in different ways. You could even look at the seminary situation where you need you need more black students on campus.
Okay.
You need more black faculty and administrators, so that they can be modeling in what they're doing, the interracial aspects of our faith. In terms of the churches, I think that if you can develop a relationship with the church and begin to do some pulpit exchanges, or invite some, your black counterpart to bring his congregation to something that's happening at your church, then it will be helpful. There are black pastors and leaders who are involved, not a large number, who are involved in the Global Leadership Summit. I see a number of them there, but we are still not functioning with the numbers that would enable us to be hopeful about what's going on in the future. We are still behind. I was the first black professor at Gordon Conwell Seminary. They have Reverend Patrick Smith now, who is there, but you have such a small group of blacks who are involved in these white institutions. I mean, I've taught African American history at Gordon College for about 20 years, but you don't have enough black students either on the college, at Gordon College, or in Gordon Conwell, in order to make a difference. So they feel, like a minority group that's just tolerated, rather than accepted for who they are and what they can contribute.
So again, the lowest common denominator is love, interpersonal relationship, breaking down the lack of familiarity. So just for the sake of discussion, if I'm a white pastor in suburban Massachusetts, and this is something I want to pursue, a relationship like this, I'm just grabbing here, but obviously we could take initiative and simply take initiative to meet someone, a black pastor. Is there any format or provision for approaching like the Ministerial Alliance and asking if you could recommend or help broker a relationship? Does that sort of thing happen, Dr. Roberts?
I'm not aware of that happening, but it could certainly be a useful way of going about it. You can set up people from the city and people from the suburbs and encourage them to go out for lunch or breakfast, just to get to know each other, because unless you know each other, and especially when you're talking about churches, what the belief system is, then you are not going to be able to get something going which will benefit the community. Even though from the Black Ministerial Alliance standpoint, I try to keep theology out of it altogether. Because if you did bring in a doctrinal faith, it would simply not work. My concern was the community. We want to be helpful to the community, to do things which would would strengthen the community and make them know that there are ministers and churches that do care. There are a lot of people who are not connected with any church, but because of the nature of the black church in the community, the most of the historic black churches are community institutions.
Yes.
Where people come just because the church have been there.
Yes.
So when they want to have a funeral, they're going to call us.
Yes.
When they want to have a baby dedicated or to do a wedding, they're going to be in touch with us.
Yes.
So our place within the community allows us to be, as it were, the gatekeepers of the community. So that anyone who wants to come into the community to do something need to touch base with us. And that was a part of the role of the Black Ministry Alliance, that we tried to allow both people outside the community as well as those in the community to know that we are there to protect the interests of the black churches and the black population.
In the larger community.
Right.
Yeah. And certainly as a historian, you know better than I do, but this is a salient characteristic of Christian civilization. In the Mediterranean, in the East, where Christianity has a very different flavor and style than it does here in America, that is exactly what the church is like. And all these, in fact, I'm reading a wonderful book right now by a Russian author called Everyday Saints. And he describes this very phenomenon in Russia and how that so often these wonderful opportunities to bring the gospel to someone come out of the most seemingly unrelated or innocuous interactions, a funeral or some other kind of involvement of the church in people's lives, because the church is seen that way. And in places where it is possible to speak more of a Christianized civilization or that culture being more established, it very much functions in a way exactly as you have just described.
And sometimes the situations that Christians find themselves in force them to come together. Because they know that they can't stand alone.
It is
they have to be together.
It is true.
But in the United States, it's not always the same. I'm sort of in a different situation from some of my colleagues, in that I was brought up in Jamaica, where I was a part of a majority population. So I don't think like a minority. During my life, I've thought as a majority person who can achieve whatever I want to achieve.
Certainly, yes.
And having had so many students who have studied with me, it makes it easy for me to develop relationship, because that relationship started when they were my students. So there is no barriers that need to be broken down. So I don't expect that some of my colleagues will be able to move as smoothly across the racial lines as I have done. First, because of my upbringing, and secondly, because of the relationships that I've established during my teaching career at Gordon Conwell.
And you are, Dr. Roberts, perceived in the general sense as a father. You're perceived as I said at the beginning of the introduction, sort of a statesman in the body of Christ. And I think that is unique to your particular life, but also an opportunity for the older minister who has a long track record of service. And I think that to use that opportunity wisely, as you have done, to use that influence in a way that is winsome and helpful and relationship building is really great.